2. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 8th episode of the Music Mentality Podcast.
Wow, already 8.
8
Oh my
episodes
God.
after 6 months or something because we skipped the whole holiday season. Although my tree is still up.
I kind of wanted to hear more of that.
Oh, did you? Oh, I still have snow
Yeah.
on the stream. If you want to go to the stream right now, there's snow. You can go listen more of that. That is Sigma's theme from Overwatch. And the reason I selected it, even though we don't typically talk about video game music or film music on here, is because it's actually particularly interesting the type of scale that whole melody and everything is comprised of. So the character in the game has this whole thing about hearing a melody in his head because he's insane. But it has this interesting, like, semi-impressionist sound to it while also kind of sounding octatonic, which is what threw me off. And I was like, how are you getting impressionist and octatonic together? And it turns out it's because it's a hexatonic scale that they use within that, and it's just a minor third and a half step, which is the hexatonic scale. It's a 6-note scale the whole time. And there's like a whole bunch of different variables on hexatonic scales, but I thought that one was super cool. That's why we heard that. So how's everybody doing? How was your holidays?
That was a lot of information.
Sorry.
It was very good.
That was good.
Very good. I
Anxious.
took a trip to Houston, and I got to see some of the people that are in this chat.
All of them, in fact.
That is true.
I didn't see any.
No?
Not you, which means I saw all of you.
And was there.
All right, do we want to just jump right into this and like get the ball rolling?
No,
Yeah.
you need to introduce us.
We
What
should
is it about
we should
our
probably
name?
talk about how Josue has really curly hair now.
Oh no! Wait,
you-
we have
if
to
you-
wait.
If you haven't
We need
noticed,
to build up.
build up to what? Build up
You
to
have
his
to
introduction.
introduce me, and then Brian.
Nah,
and then
You're
we go.
here every episode. I don't need to introduce you.
2020.
What if they forgot?
All right, so
Okay.
Josue curled his hair, and now he's a different person. And do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us about yourself, your musical background, who you are, why are you doing this, why are you with us right now?
So I'm Eric, and my musical background is mostly just rock and metal growing up, but then I kind of got really tired of that, playing drums, and so I learned piano, and surprisingly, there's some times where throughout my life, there are times where I really surprise myself musically of how little I knew, because I went through like my entire grade school playing clarinet and marching band, and I didn't even know what a chord was. So that's pretty sad. But once I started playing piano, I started listening most importantly to like Beach Boys, like with a lot of harmony and complex harmony and a lot of weird chord progressions. That's what really got me like interested in writing music and singing too, and just trying to make beautiful music. That's really what pushed me to start even to be a music major or an audio engineering major and just be involved in like music as my major. And yeah, ever since then, I've just been picking up instruments along the way, learning more guitar. I just wanted to kind of do it all in a sense. And then now I am going to intern next semester, hopefully, and then get my degree in audio engineering. And then, yeah, I was just asked to be in this chat just to kind of bring my own input into questions
It's
about
because your
music.
hair is more curly. That's the only
It's
reason.
actually the truth.
Sure. Just disregard everything I said. It's all because my hair is curly. Yeah.
Brain, you're muted.
So what high school did you go to? If that's
We're not
too
supposed to
public.
say locations and names.
Say it backwards.
I'll say your dress on here.
No. I went to
Okay.
Pasadena, not Pasadena High School, but I went to high school in Pasadena.
Nice. That was very secretive.
So did you immediately go into, because you were an audio major first, right? So did you go into audio immediately after high school, or was there a break where you were doing music on your own, or how did this whole process happen?
I did a full year of just general studies because I had heard all the stuff about like, oh, music is not going to give you a lot of money. It's not going to give you enough to sustain yourself. And at that point, I was pretty burnt out on music in general. Just tired of felt like I was just making noise with the drums and banging on them. And it just didn't feel like I was creating anything worthwhile, or I wasn't even creating, but just like I wasn't doing anything beautiful with music. And I just decided to take a step back and just kind of do my general studies, stuff that I knew I had to take anyways. But eventually I just kind of got reinvigorated with like different music, because I was just mostly just rock, some pop and metal. Then I got into like classic rock and just completely flipped my musical world. So then from there, I
Would you say you're an up and coming Freddie Mercury, probably? Like, is that a good way to describe you? Like,
no. I don't think anybody could say that. I don't know. I just an up and coming, not even an artist. I just want to make music, but I don't want to seem so pretentious to say that. But
no, it's not. I'm practically the next Jerry Seinfeld.
You're right. I do laugh every time you play. So.
Oh, got him. Oh.
Okay, let's just go on to the top.
No, hang on. I actually have some more questions for Eric, because people need to know him as a human being. So, Eric, you're semi a music major, right? Did you finish an associate's in music, or how did that go down?
no, it's so weird. I don't know. I guess I didn't want to be a music teacher, even though I kind of want to be a music teacher, but I would want to be more of like a private lesson teacher, which I do now. But I think mostly it was just because I had failed my theory 3. And at that point, I just kind of thought like, okay, I don't care about part writing that much. Like, I don't care to know the information that well, because I don't feel like the area of music where I'm going into is going to need it that much. Like I don't care too much about the classical world. I can absolutely appreciate it. I love the piano. I love the instrument. In terms of like getting my classical, or I don't know, classical voice singing, classical singing, classical anything, it just doesn't really interest me that much as much as like rock or pop. So modern music, I guess, without sounding too ignorant, I guess, because I obviously really appreciate it, the classical side.
No, I mean that totally makes sense. Theory 3, funny enough, Theory 3 for me was the funnest course because it was the peak of that basic part writing theory and stuff, and I'm like the only person on the planet who actually enjoyed part writing. And I understand that everyone else hates theory. But then you move into Theory 4, and Theory 4 focuses on like crazy techniques, and you learn so much about how we got into the rock world and everything, because it's all focused on the 20th century, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I totally understand why you want to stop there, because most people agree that theory classes are useless. I would say that the most valuable class in all of music school probably is actually the ear training classes instead. Because that's probably the most valuable skill in all of music, honestly, is having the good ear. And ear training, or brain training at least, the connection of pitch between ear to brain to mouth, right? Whereas theory is the thing that makes half music majors drop after the first semester. I think that's about the statistic. At least that's what I've observed, is about after Theory 1, half the people change majors or drop, right?
Mm-hmm. Especially if they have...
I really love Theory 1. Sorry. Especially what?
Oh, especially if they haven't read music before. And that's
Oh
another
yeah,
layer to the cake that they're having to tackle at a collegiate level. Yeah, that'll make you turn and run. It's like, tab this out
Yeah.
from.
Tap this out.
Yeah, and I think you can get by if you have like Brain. I don't know how much reading you had done, but I had very little done. I had reading from like way prior, and I had to remember every good boy does fine, right? And like every time. But I think you can really get by if your ear is pretty good. You can start to make sense of it and just struggle with the reading of the music for like a semester or two. And then eventually you'll get to the point where reading music's like so fast and you can read any clef anytime, anywhere, right? But it really takes time. But the guitar players often have good ears and can't read anything.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's true.
Yeah. One last question for you, Eric. What are your musical goals? What do you want to do with music?
Music, I think I just want to make albums. I want to make music that doesn't necessarily, I don't know. I think just lately I've just been, because as a pop artist, you have to create music and then advertise it and then be like, hey guys, I'm performing here and here, this and that. And there's a business side of it too. And I don't know. I think me personally, I can get caught up in being like, oh, it's like all fun and all for show and all for people. And I guess lately I've just been like, I don't care to like really do all this extra stuff. I just want to make music for me and because I've made music and I haven't released it, mostly because I want to copyright it, but also because I'm lazy. But I really just want to be able to like make an album and just be low key about it, I guess. I don't want to make it a big thing. It's just, I don't know. I just really want to enjoy it. I don't want to like, I absolutely want to work hard at it, but I think the business side is what really annoys me, I guess. That makes sense. I don't know.
Do you have SoundCloud?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I do. I haven't posted anything to SoundCloud.
Oh, okay.
But, and then in general, I just want to harmony, and I still haven't found that kind of like my musical soulmates to kind of create that kind of beautiful like Beach Boys kind of music where everybody can sing, everybody can harmonize, everybody can play an instrument very well, and they're also very creative at creating. But until then, I just want to create music and perform it live for people and just kind of have fun with it. And I guess be able to have like side jobs that sustain me while I'm able to have fun with it until and or if I become more popular and can like sustain myself by touring and stuff like that. So
you don't like the business side of it, and I'm glad we mentioned this because this is part of my topic later. But you don't like the business side of it, but you do want to make it your career in the future.
mm-hmm.
That's a tough one, huh?
Some assistants that work for cheap and are good at what they do. Good luck.
Brain has an assistant.
I do, and it's the best thing ever. And yeah, Eric said something that really meant a lot to me. It's like, I just want to do music, and if you ever see a pop artist, it seems like music's the last thing on the menu. It's like I have all this other stuff that's way more important. It's actually where my bread's buttered, And I like the idea of the musical soulmates too, because how many people would write something, do all the vocal harmonies and get some hired guns, right? Who aren't their musical soulmates and they aren't really invested, but they can sing the lines, right?
Right.
And they just cushion themselves with these pro musicians. And if you find your musical soulmates, they'll probably work for free or very cheap, right? You won't have to pay them, like you'd have to pay session players.
Right.
That just,
I wouldn't mind hiring people. Like that's most of the time the reality of like you're not gonna just find your musical soulmate around the corner. I still haven't found a musical soulmate or soulmates, so just gotta do it what I can. That's it.
Oh, it's very hard to find a community of people who just want to get in a room, right, and go 3, 2, 1, go, and see what happens, right? Like Motley Crue or something like that. These bands that start in garages. There is a very slim garage scene, and
Yeah.
even in the big cities, it's not that big. And once you're out of the city, it's non-existent, right?
Go to a open mic night at a bar or something. Maybe you'll connect.
That's a good idea.
I wouldn't be taking business advice from Jonathan.
What do you mean? I used to tour around the greater, Houston area.
Did you really?
With the Dogs of the Sun.
Ah, yes, the Dogs
Is that,
of the Sun. Yeah.
Arthur's.
And we would play things such as the Winehouse Amy and the
second year.
the Pelicans, cousins, the Eagles.
Yeah.
Anything
You did tour.
Yeah.
of the
You
sort.
did play with them a little bit, right? Like
Yeah, but then they
on
stopped
stage with
calling.
them a little bit. Oh.
Sadness.
It was fun
I
to
don't-
play with Arthur.
Yeah, they're kind of like those guys that will just like, the 1, 2, 3, and then that's it. They'll like figure it out. They're cool.
It takes a level of musicianship to be able to do that as well, though, because they're good musicians, right? A lot of guys who are scared of jamming, right? Everyone says they want to jam, but nobody actually ever wants to jam, right? And there's a lot of people who are like scared of jamming because they're like, oh, what if I can't find the key center, and what if I play the wrong notes, and what if I don't know what I'm doing? And it takes a level of musicianship and confidence to just be like, I'm just gonna play, to just count off and go.
Fun once you do it.
True.
I think also the people that you're with, I think if you feel like you want to impress them, of course you're gonna be less likely to jam with them. But if they're just your friends, like whatever, I missed a note, I missed that changer, I don't know, whatever the part of the song that you messed up on, keep going. Doesn't matter.
Yep.
I remember actually. Go ahead.
No, all you.
I remember actually, like I got up and we were covering a song, and I was with Arthur, and he was playing bass, and I was playing drums. And I was like, oh hey, like I know this song, but I don't remember exactly how it goes. He's like, don't worry, like I'll follow you, I trust you. And like I've never heard that like from anybody. And being in that stressful, it was a bar, so people weren't like just looking at us the whole time, but like still we were on stage, and we could have been seen by several people. To hear that in the moment, I was like, wow, that feels really good. And it's kind of like that. I feel like the musical soulmate will have that vibe to you, being around you, that hey, I trust you wherever you go, like, musically, like I'll follow you, whatever. Kind of mushy, but I feel like in that moment I was like, wow, that's amazing. Thanks.
Maybe you're in love.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
No, I think they do it. They do it
ask
like.
them on a date.
No, I was just joking. Unless you're serious, then I mean, by all means. But no, they do it like, or they would do it like 3 or 4 times a week. So that's why they're so comfortable, like playing the same tunes, like at different places all the time. Just get comfortable. Yeah, you could.
Yeah.
I mean, when playing with them too, it was just kind of like they just call a tune. They're like, oh yeah. And if they don't remember it completely, they kind of just figure it out.
Yeah.
That seems to be how it goes a lot of the time, and maybe the public or the common population, the common man, doesn't realize it. I mean, I can't tell you like how many times me, and I'm pretty sure Josue too, we've talked about this, like have just figured out like a gig or a set or a song or something right there, and just be like, it'll be fine. Like it's a 1-5-6-4 chord on the chords on the verse, and then it's 2-5-1 2-5-1 on the chorus, and then it's this and that on the bridge. Go right, and it's like you just wing it and you can play through it, and it's like it's pretty straightforward. And the common man, I don't think, has the ear to tell that you just figured that out right on the spot. You know, it's much harder if like, so for example, church music, and Brain, you might be familiar with this because you just started this. Playing, a lot of churches play with click tracks now. Basically impossible to do that stuff with click tracks now because you have to be right on with a click, and there's like, you know, a guide in there who's like verse 2, 3, 4. You know, like you're like, okay, there we go, there we are. But I feel like most of the time we're just figuring it out on the spot, and having those like improv skills and the ear to correct your chord progression if you mess something up, right, is really the skills where it's at. To where, I mean, ideally, I'd like to get to the musician point where I don't have to learn anything, and you just sight read everything, right? That would be the most fun.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay, do we actually start the podcast now?
Yeah, I think
All right. Well, typically how we do this, Eric, is we go around the circle and we do a little "What have you been listening to this week?" But it's been like a month, so what have you been listening to this month? And then we do a typical "What have you been working on?" So since you're the guest, Eric, what have you been listening to lately?
I've been listening to. Let me see, look at my stuff.
Next.
A lot of
Okay.
old school hip hop. Old school hip hop. Stuff that I listened to as a kid. I listened to a bit of Jesus is King because I'd never heard it, which is really good. And then this artist called Big Star I listened to this morning. Really pretty acoustic song, like singer-songwriter type of song. Yeah, old school hip hop, Jesus King, pretty guitar music.
So, obviously the Jesus is King thing we won't get into because that was our last episode. But
Oh yeah,
pretty much nobody. I thought it was okay.
I thought it was really good. Like the piano. The piano for the first track is like, I learned it yesterday. I was like, oh, this is so amazing. This is so like satisfying to play.
Someone's echoing. I think it's Brain.
I think it's me.
Did I do something new?
I don't know.
I'm just,
Someone's echoing and someone's roboting. Check
I
one.
put it on mute and nothing changed.
Oh, everything's fixed now. Who did you mute? Yourself?
Myself. I think somebody else muted themselves.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, Jesus is King. We've talked it to death, but like, it is what it is. Like, the songs are short, the lyrics are good to me, and if you like Kanye, you like Kanye, basically. And if you don't, you don't. Musically, I can't really get into it a ton. Although, I think I said this last time, my church has been playing that album like while we set up and tear down the church every week, like all the time. And so I'm hearing it constantly. And so it's growing on me just because I'm hearing it all the time, you know? I'm like, oh yeah, this track is sick. I guess Brain is the next in order. Brain, what have you been listening to?
Kenny Burrell's album Midnight Blue. I had this prepared. I don't keep this with me always. But yeah, I've been listening to this. It's really intimate, and I went to a lecture recital at the University of Houston where a master's student played like 3 or 4 tracks off of it, and he analyzed some of the music and pointed out some of the things that are happening, and that was actually a really cool experience. And if you're in Houston, I suggest you get down to UH and go sit in on some recitals. But when I heard this, I heard some intimate tunes, and I think a couple of them are going to be on my recital. And if not, I'm going to save it and maybe do a lecture recital on this and kind of rip off the idea that I saw. But I'm really listening and looking for recital material because my recitals this semester, April 20th, 2020. 4/20/2020.
Oh, Oh,
Ooh.
which
brain.
happens to be my mother's birthday, which is going to be cool. And there's only one for 2020.
Did
And
you did you pick that intentionally?
yeah, for my
Okay.
mother.
Dang. Okay.
For
tight.
your mother.
Yeah, for your mother. Okay. That's also related to one of my topics today. Segue.
Jonathan?
Yeah, Jonathan.
I've been listening to a podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, where it's some people who imagine that they're in a different, dimension, and I just listen. I haven't been listening to much music.
Is it just like fictional story stuff?
It's like this guy fell through a portal at a Burger King, and now he's in this other dimension and he can't get back.
Okay, but is it fiction?
No, it's true story. It
Oh,
really
No,
happened.
okay.
it really happened.
Gotcha.
But okay. I mean, I guess I'm gonna. It's a topic idea, but I listened to. I was watching AGT yesterday,
Huh.
America's Got Talent, and there was this 13-year-old girl from Norway, or who's Norwegian or something. I
Norway.
don't know. Yeah, okay, but she did a rendition of a Queen song, and man, that was insane. I know it's like, oh, you're listening to music from a competition show, lame. But no, this girl was like, it was really cool. You should check it out.
Why would we judge you for that, Jonathan?
Nice.
Why do we
Because I
feel?
judged myself for you.
Oh, okay. No, real talk though, like on that topic of like covers from other artists, I didn't get into pop music for a really, really long time. It wasn't until like 2013, 2014 or something that I actually listened to pop music like seriously at all. And how I got into it was not the original radio recordings. It was actually YouTube cover artists. It's actually an artist, maybe some of you have heard the name, Kurt Hugo Schneider, who brings in all the different like YouTube musicians and stuff and does different covers with them, like really highly professional. And those covers are the versions that I heard first for a lot of pop songs, and I like them better than the radio versions. So it is what it is, and that's tight.
That happens.
Yeah, I'll like, I guess, talk more about it later.
Oh, is it part of your topic?
I have kind of a topic. It's
Oh,
a half
okay.
a topic.
Tight. So now typically what we talk about is what you've been working on musically, and this is kind of a keep you accountable thing, except Jonathan generally says nothing. So Eric, what have you been working on?
I've been working on a song that I'm making, and I'm typically better with just making chords. And I think, well, I was gonna say funny enough, but it's not really. To give respect to myself, like listening to old school hip hop, those people could rap really well and were really good at like vocal rhythm. And I'm really bad at melodies and making it sound catchy and making it. And I'm like a drummer, so like for some reason my brain can't connect like the melodic rhythm versus physical, like beating a drum kind of rhythm, or hitting the surface. So listening to that, I think, is expanding my vocal, I guess, creativeness, vocal rhythmicness. And right now I'm kind of split. Like sometimes, like I'm always split between like just piano and vocal, solo singer-songwriter type of song versus big production, wall of sound, vocal harmony and drums and all that stuff, and trying to connect the rock with pop that I love dearly. So it's kind of like I'm split right now. Like, I don't know if I want to make the song. Maybe I can just make two different versions, which is probably what I'm going to do. Is like just a singer-songwriter type of vibe to it, and then also release a big production one of it. So
You could do
There's
both
a
of them
lot
in the
of-
same song.
That's what he was saying, right?
well, not in the same song, but I could do actually in the same song.
Oh, you mean
but there's
two different versions of the same track, though, right?
Yeah, because I can't decide. I can't decide if I want a bigger production, which probably I don't know. There's a lot of duality to what I do. It's like I want this, but also want that. It's like, well, why not both? So
I
For sure.
generally
Generally,
my
my
compositional
compositional
when I'm like the
the
compositional idea when I'm
compositional
trying
idea
to
when I'm
decide
trying to
between two
decide
things,
between two
a
things.
general rule of thumb is go with the weirder option because it's going to be better musically. And so whichever option
mm,
you think is weirder, that would be my advice.
Yeah.
But you
trying
don't
to
have you
decide which one is weirder.
don't
Not necessarily weird. I guess I don't know. I don't think that necessarily applies in these cases because they're not weird. I guess the one that's solo singer songwriter is more weird because it feels more sparse
mm,
and I guess more emotional that way. And actually, for a long time, I've always it feels like it's almost been a crutch for me, compositionally, to add so much production to make up for the lack of a great melody or lack of a great hook. You know what I mean? And so for a long time, I've just been like trying to up that game and to where I can say, oh, this song works just piano and vocal very, very well. You know what I mean? So
I happen to think that Rihanna is getting a lot of mileage out of her stuff. And she's pretty creative. And I don't even know if she writes her material. But ever since I heard Under My Umbrella, Ella, I was like, you can do that? I didn't know. I really did not know. And now you listen to a lot of pop songs and they break, and you're talking about the rhythmic quality of old school hip hop, right? I'm hearing a lot of things in pop music like that Ella. Yeah, I'm just glad you mentioned that.
yeah,
Because a little bit of creativity sprinkled on one word can spin into, a hit.
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's definitely like it's bled over completely, right? Hip hop is the most popular genre in the world right now. And like pop music is I mean, I remember back in 2013, 2014 when I was trying to get into pop music, but I still didn't like rap at all, right? And I was like, man, why does every pop song have a bridge that some guest rapper comes on and starts rapping and ruins the song, right? And nowadays it's all
That's
blended.
so true.
It's like,
Katy Perry.
yep, yep. And I think
Yeah.
there was something with Taylor Swift or something too, and there's
Yep.
just all kinds of stuff. And I was like, this is crazy. And it's all blended, and those hip hop rhythms and stuff, they got rhythm down, and rhythm's arguably the most important part of the music anyway, right? So that's why pop music gets away with the three notes, right? Just three notes over and over and over again in the melody. The melody doesn't need to be particularly interesting, right?
True.
I learned so much on this podcast.
Yes, I've told myself it's not what there's there. It's not ever really black or white. Like most times it'll be this way, most times it'll be that way. But there's always an exception to a songwriting rule. I think it's never like this is a tried and true way, and then you are for sure going to be guaranteed a great melody by doing this, or you can be guaranteed a great song by doing this. You know, I don't know. There's so many factors that tie into making a great song.
Completely.
Yep.
And I mean, at the end of the day, as much theory and practice and everything we want to apply to music, it's all completely subjective. So what you consider a great song, someone else will not. And what you consider your best song, someone might say it's your worst. And, people, everyone connects differently.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
For sure.
Poppycock.
Brain, have you been working on anything? I know it's winter break. It's hard to work on things over winter break.
It really is. But I got some gloves, which keep my hands toasty, and now I can work on things. All right, here's what I've been doing. Shred guitar. I'm on a mission to just start playing fast. And I want to start playing fast, as fast as I humanly can. Because I have the theory, I have the chords and the melodic stuff kind of taken care of, but the one thing I really can't do is just blaze and set the fretboard on fire, right? And that's what people like. And I've been working with some Eric Johnson and Sean Lane and some like guy Van Halen, all the guys who are notoriously burners. And that's my next mission. That's 2020. Brian's going to start tearing it up.
So it's funny that you say that, because whenever I talk about you to other people, I remember that I've seen you play like metal stuff before, and I know you also play jazz, and I'm like, Brain's this great guitarist because he's super versatile in that he can play metal stuff and he can also play jazz. And I remember seeing you at a Devin Townsend show or something too, and I'm like, okay, like he's this really versatile guitarist. And I was under the impression that you actually could shred, because I'm pretty sure I've seen you play pretty quick stuff. Are you like, do you have sweeping capabilities and stuff? Are you working on that, or?
Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm talking about. The really extensive, just hammer on, sweeping, anything actually that looks flashier than it probably is. right?
It's just an arpeggio, right?
Yeah, taking one hand up in the air while you're trilling, right? That is something I don't have. And it wasn't until I played with some good jazz drummers and they would get like a solo. And if you ever see a good jazz drummer, they take it down, right? And they build it up. And they might take 10 minutes building things back up. And then it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, go back into the tune.
Yeah.
Right? But they own the stage. And I really want to just be able to offer the showmanship. Because I'm playing at bars and stuff. And I'll play some hip stuff, but it's not turning heads. Right? I could play way simpler with more attitude and showmanship and turn heads, right? Mm-hmm. And so anything that's flashy, anything that's burning, anything that's gonna make people go, oh, that's what I'm after in 2020. Because I put in the time doing my homework so far.
For sure. And you know your stuff. It's interesting, like the showmanship is so important for a guitarist, and we've talked about this, but I know, like, when I watch a jazz combo or a jazz band of any kind and the guitarist takes a solo, and if they're just standing there like shredding, could not care less. Literally, I've lost all interest at that point. And it's similar with other instruments too. Like I've said before, how I don't like bebop because bebop solos are just shredding all over the place, and I'm like, there's no groove. I'm not interested. And I'm interested in the theoretical side. I think Adam Neely had a video one time, or someone had a video one time, on how swing changes in bebop when they're soloing, and how they start to play straight eighths instead of swung eighths, even though the band behind them is swinging, because you can't actually swing when you're playing that fast. I think that's really neat.
Yeah.
But the actual playing doesn't entertain me at all, and I get super bored, right? So my question for you then is, because speed for me has always been a struggle, particularly with my right hand, and we've talked about this a million times. I'm a left-handed bass player who plays right-handed, so my left hand can do anything that anyone needs it to do. Like 100% of the time, my left hand can do anything. My right hand sucks butt. Right? I need to like compensate for tapping, which we've seen before in lab and stuff, because my right hand can't play Jaco Pastorius speeds. My right hand can't play Tech Death speeds, right? So what is your strategy right now to building up speed, aside from just sitting at a metronome, right?
That's beautiful. Yeah. I made this realization when I was working on legato, too, because it's real cool to take your hand away, like point at a girl, right? While you're still playing, right? Or something. Or have a sip of a beer, right? And I realized I can play wickedly fast on the fretboard. Mm-hmm. And almost every guitar player I know is just focused way too much on the fretboard. And all the speed is in the pick, or, in my right hand technique. And I haven't done anything to my left. All I've done is speed up the right. and everything is just blazingly fast. You know, in comparison.
How
you know?
have you sped up the right? What's the process? Are you just trying to play faster and faster tunes, or?
No, all right. I did use a metronome I set it to like 30 BPM. It's so slow that I could like take a sip of water between each pick stroke. And I literally closed my eyes and just tried to meditate and really feel what's happening, you know. And I went so slow it was boring and actually difficult because you're trying to move in a fluid motion, but it's so slow. It's like, you know, it's hard to even be fluid when you're moving so slow. Fast, it's easy, right? So I went so incredibly slow, bro, that it was painful. But I did start to ramp up the metronome. And the biggest trick, I'll just tell you, it's economy picking. I used to be a John Petrucci straight alternate picking guy.
Yeah.
Right? But the economy picking is what all the fusion guys use, and Frank Gambale and stuff. And so economy picking plus using these other three picks.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm playing, but I'm grabbing notes with the middle in the ring. That makes you so fast without any extra effort.
Yep.
And I beat myself up yesterday. I said, why didn't you try this 10 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
I would be like Tosin Abasi right now. Yeah.
So to clarify for listeners, when you say economy picking, you're talking about like doing double downstrokes and stuff when you need to, and double upstrokes and stuff, right? Across strings, right? Similar, well, essentially what sweep picking is, if people don't know, right? The right hand literally just goes down and up while the left hand is playing on all the strings, right?
Doesn't that just feel good?
I mean, I don't know. I can't actually sweep. I can mimic the motion.
Feels.
Right.
That's how it feels. It's like magic. It's like I'm never going to teach anyone alternate picking for the rest of my life. Yeah.
Well, you have to get alternate picking speed up if you're playing like tremolo picking stuff on the same string. If you're doing like black metal or something, right?
Of course, and all throughout the economy technique is alternate. Every time you're on one string, you're pretty much alternating.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. But the economy picking and then using these guys, it's like 2, 3, 4 times as fast, and I'm loving it.
Yeah. I mean, the finger thing's a real thing. I will testify as a bass player. I've heard so many bass players talk about how finger technique, right? You can use I call it the Brian Beller technique for tremolo picking, where you play with the finger and then you flick back with the nail, so it sounds like a pick, and you can go way faster than a pick can. And then because you have 3 fingers, 4 if you're really good. My pinky I feel is too short and I can't do it. You can go way faster than a pick player can. Like it.
Yeah.
I mean, classical guitarists do it, right? They demonstrate how much faster they can play than a metal player because they're playing with fingers the whole time. Yeah.
Yep.
We're talking about that. We're talking about that. I was talking about that with Brian. How like I feel since I've been learning guitar more, I've wanted to focus most of my time with fingers because I feel like you're just more versatile with fingers as opposed with the pick. There are certain times where a pick is going to be like needed as opposed to fingers, but maybe a tone or maybe I don't know, tremolo picking on a single string. I think you were talking to me about that too, Brian. How you wouldn't be able to do that with your fingers on a single string, but yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but I feel like I had to say it.
We were talking about that. You're not crazy.
I was like, I don't know where to go with that, but I was like, I feel like I was going somewhere with that. Anyways, go ahead. Continue.
Well, that's it. That's what I've been working on. Flash and trash.
I am so excited to hear where that goes. I want 4/20/2020. I want to hear your shreddiness. You've got 4 months.
It's a classical recital. I don't shred on it.
Even better.
All right. Well, if we're plugging
Now is the
recitals,
time.
May 2nd, 3:30 p.m. is my recital. Composer recital. Be there, be square.
I'll shred on your recital.
Where is that at?
That's at UTA up here in Arlington, so like Dallas Fort Worth area. I know it's
okay.
far. Yeah, it's like a 4-hour drive.
That's still cool. It's still really cool though. Composer's recital. Always interesting.
Yeah, I don't have anything jazzy on it, unfortunately, for all you jazz kids. I tried.
I don't like jazz.
I'm burnt out on
Good.
it.
Yeah, I don't like jazz.
No, I
either.
mean jazz is okay. But I don't play it.
Right.
Maybe on drums.
Okay, we've now bored the saxophone player to death, I'm sure. So, Jonathan,
Oh, come on.
what have you been working on, Jonathan?
Well, after hanging out with a whole bunch of music nerds on December 26th, it made me think about reading music, and I pulled out some old music I would play in high school, some solo I wanted to do. And I realized how much harder it is to play classical than it is to play jazz saxophone.
That's probably true.
I was actually using my air resourcefully, right? Because you want to breathe in certain spots. And I'm like, I can't hold my breath for 2 measures anymore.
Right. Yeah.
But that's all I really did. Besides that, I'm learning Python because I'm going to try to get a job this semester because I have a math degree now. So coding and reading music.
Congrats.
Yeah.
you.
Congratulations on Jonathan. He got a degree. First one in the group to actually get a degree. So, nice.
And it's not in music.
It's not in music.
I have y'all's degrees, don't you? Associates.
We have associates, but
Yeah.
Just throwing this out there, we should maybe work on a cruise ship as a band.
okay. So
Probably
I've
really
heard so
tired.
much about this.
I know, we all have.
It seems like a good idea on the surface, right?
Yeah.
But it also seems
Hopefully.
to. Yeah, it also
I
seems
will
terrible.
leave school for a whole year and follow you.
I'd be down.
I think that'd be really fun. And you've been making a lot of money, but really, really tired. Because I think you're playing a lot long periods of time, right?
You play like
That's
10
right.
hours a
That's what I
day or
think.
something.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Dang.
I mean, if
I can't
we
with those
if we brought enough like tune diversity and it was like you guys and like Josue or something, like actual friends playing, I could get down to do it for like 6 months. Right? With enough tune diversity to where after the first 2 weeks, we're not bored to death of playing Autumn Leaves, you know, right? And we can actually play like
That would be so much
Jonathan
fun.
Kreisberg or something fun. I don't know. I'd be down to do it. I don't know if I could commit a whole year of my life to that. That seems crazy. 6 months maybe though.
Where would Sarah be?
Oh, she could
I
be
mean,
with
where
us. She
would
could sing.
Rasa?
Haras? Yeah.
Where would she
People.
be?
She could sing
She could
or play
sing.
keys.
Oh, true. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I thought I was singing. La, la, la,
Oh.
la.
Sorry. Like, sorry. I'm on my phone's hotspot and I got a call. At
Oh.
Sprint.
Did you disconnect?
That's
We
why.
didn't even notice.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we didn't notice at all.
I was like mid sentence. I would say I would do like a month. I would do a trial run because I don't know if I'm gonna be like super miserable and I don't know what can happen if someone's like that stranded. You know, feels like you're stranded on the island and you just like 10 hours of this crap. Jeez.
Well, no, you get to hop off, right? Cruises stop places, so you get to visit
Oh.
different places, right? You're not just actually on the boat. I mean, I guess if it was like a Navy like cruiser or something, that would be terrible. If you were in the Navy band.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be
I'm
horrible.
pretty sure that the contracts would be
In the
longer.
Navy band. And your girlfriend's the singer or whatever, and she's just eye candy. It's like 500 soldiers and you're playing to them, and It's like, yeah, we all know I'm just backing her up because they used to have pretty girls come perform for the soldiers, right? That'd be
Sounds
hella
scary
sick.
for the girl.
That makes sense.
And then they're all hitting on her the whole voyage.
Yeah.
Gosh,
Not just the
Yeah.
voyage.
sounds stressful for the girl.
Yeah. That sounds horrible.
I remember this one time I was on a cruise and they had a steel pan artist that would go
Oof.
play the hits, you know, and like I don't know, name a popular song.
Shake,
I don't know.
shake, shake, senora, shake it all the time.
Sure.
That's a good song.
Right body in time. Whoa.
And when we stopped at one of those islands, there was a steel pan player playing just on the streets, and that kid was just like, he looked like he was going to like a jazz school or something. He was improvising, doing everything. He made the guy that was on the boat look really bad. I was like on the boat, like, man, I want to go back to that guy on the. Well, that sounds awkward. I want to go back and listen to that guy on the island.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So I wanted to reply to your classical versus jazz thing for saxophone because I'm curious if you guys think that applies to every instrument. Now, obviously, drum set is not really a classical instrument, so you can't really apply that. But for singing, right? Singing is definitely way more lax in the vocal area in jazz than classical, right? Because in classical, you have to be vibrating the whole time. You have full breath support. Everything's legato and this and that. And, I mean, the different languages thing is obviously something. And then in jazz, you can basically be a pop singer and sing jazz and no one has a problem. You can be off your support as long as you're hitting right notes. Or if you're hitting wrong notes and correcting them because it's jazz, you're good, right? So,
I do it.
what about other instruments? Is jazz just actually easier to play than classical music, do you think?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, when you think about Liszt, right?
Singing
That's
wise.
just so hard to play for a pianist.
Mm-hmm.
But for a jazzer, maybe there's much less virtuosity and like runs, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for guitar, I think jazz is hard, bro. Yeah. For me, classical, everything's written down for you, and it's in like 2 keys, maybe 3 or 4.
What?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good point.
and they're usually minor and
I
they're
think-
simple.
I think
and
jazz is fewer keys. Jazz is always F, B flat, or E flat, and that's it.
yeah, maybe
You never get to play in G.
And then like
no.
when you go play with the band, it's always an E or
What is the
A or
guitar
D.
key?
The guitar key. E,
E,
A,
What is the guitarist's favorite?
A minor.
What?
Dude, we could
Really?
Oh, of course.
Jam A
Yeah,
minor
open chords,
for
right?
a year, and then E minor after that, right? And then G is a good one for guitar, but in
Isn't that
jazz,
like-
you're playing in E
You said
flat.
you, right?
You're playing in all these keys that are idiomatic to the horn players, but like a little
Horrible.
tricky for me.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's lots of flats, and also the chord stuff is just, you have to listen to the way people do it. There's no manual on how to play jazz comping, right?
Mm,
Because everyone does it different.
yeah.
But if you mess up, no one's going to know or really care. In classical, if you mess up, you messed up.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I guess it's an argument of, like, technique versus brain, right? Classical is probably harder technique, but you can actually just sit there and bang it out forever and you'll get it right eventually, right? Whereas jazz is a brain thing, and that's more difficult because you have to be able to improv and come up with stuff on your own. I think of Dr. Rinsep, who said that she could not play jazz at all and could not improvise at all, right? And she was just strictly classical. And so it's probably difficult in your own ways.
Princess?
We
Oh,
flip
yeah.
we flip names around.
Oh, Okay, I think yeah.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
G is my favorite key, by the way. It's the most idiomatic on bass, I think, and it feels great and sounds great. So, love it. Is that everyone?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I guess question for Brian and you possibly as well, Jacob. Do you play guitar? Or
Very,
is it
very
strictly
little. Basically only
Okay.
bass, yeah.
Okay. So I guess it'll be mostly for Brian. But how do you feel about like playing stuff like E flat or D sharp, chords like those on a guitar? This is I guess more basic because I'm learning. Like I usually shy away from those not those keys, those chords when I'm playing songs. I'm like I'm gonna transpose this a few. And then, which is kind of bad because I'm skipping out on like those chord shapes, and then I just put a capo. I'm like, this is manageable, you know.
Mhm.
So what do you think? Do you think I should push through, or how do you play those keys like effortlessly, like transitioning from those chords? Sorry, I'm saying keys. Those chords effortlessly, you know, E flat, D sharp. Difficult
Yeah.
for me
I use
as a
the
beginner.
caged system.
The what?
The caged system, which teaches
Okay.
you all the chords up the neck in a transposing kind of fashion. And
Okay.
it's really taboo to play on here, right? But, I mean, here's an E, E, E.
Yeah.
You know, and then if you really want to, you can push it into seventh chords. But I used the caged system because I just played like 6 E major chords, and none of those were really a handful, right?
Okay.
And I have used the capo, like to get an E flat chord, just play D, capo 1, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, then when it's time to solo, I'm lost because the capo is out here. So I try to ditch that and use the caged, Caged.
Okay. Yeah.
And actually, if you look, it's because those are the chords you use. You use a C, A, G, E, and D shape. So you actually have to know 5 chords and then just shift them around. It's less thinking, I think.
Yeah.
I try not
Yeah,
to.
once you learn them, it's less. It's kind of like, my gosh, the word is escaping. Different inversions on piano. Once you learn them, it becomes so effortlessly to play, you know, without even moving that much.
Yeah.
But you have to learn them. You have to know what they are first, right? Or you know, be able to figure them out relatively quickly in the moment. So.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Jacob, what are you thinking?
Well, I mean, as far as the piano thing goes, that's something I'm working on. Is definitely the skill of the inversions, right? If your right hand, your right hand barely has to move at all. If you're just doing the inversions of the chords properly, and then your left hand moves the bass note, right?
Yeah.
So that's very little motion at all, and that's like the economy of motion idea. I don't know if that's a term applied to piano. I know it is for like bass and guitar, right? But as far as the chord shapes go for guitar, what interests me is that you're using those chord shapes C, A, G, E, and D. But for jazz, do those chord shapes really apply, or a lot of times you're using like completely different voicings, right? So more often when you're playing an E flat chord or an A flat, which seems like the worst key possible for guitar and bass, I think.
Oh, yeah. I play those quartal usually, stacked fourths, because, the conventional chords are a handful. So A might be stacked up fourths. I apologize for his behavior. But he didn't like that chord very much, so I'm putting this away.
Clearly, yeah.
Dang.
Are you familiar, Eric, with chordal and quintal harmony?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so
Nope.
basically it's something that you would have learned in Theory 4, but I'll do a quick rundown. We've talked about it before on the podcast for other people. But general harmony is built in thirds, and we actually call that tertian harmony, right? So you've got your first, your third, and your fifth, do, mi, and sol, right? quartal and quintal harmony is
Mhm.
something that impressionist music did, and it's so
Debussy and
yeah, and so it's and Bill Evans even for jazz, it's
fourths.
built in fourths and fifths, right? So technically a power chord has no third in it. It's actually technically a quintal chord because it's like a fifth and then a fourth, and then you have those
Cool.
stacked fourth sounds, and it's like right. It's very very impressionisty.
Debussy.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That was well done. Took you like 32 seconds to describe quartal and quintal harmony.
ah, nice, getting faster. I'm actually low key. I'm about to start some lessons on my YouTube channel. I'm gonna call them music theory micro lessons, and they're gonna be like 2 minutes, and it's gonna be like I'm gonna explain the number system to you in 2 minutes, and the next one's like I'm gonna explain solfege in 2 minutes, right? And people can just watch those and be like, you process this. You go and listen to it again because you're not gonna get the whole concept in 2 minutes, and then yeah. So
You get a lot of views.
little promo for my videos that are not yet up, but they're
Eric.
On oh
Oh no, go on. This is silly.
well, no, it's more of an off podcast question. You should ask your question.
Okay, Eric, how close are you to a keyboard or piano?
Completely different side of the house. I'm
Okay,
next to guitar.
we all have a keyboard though
Wait.
within arm's
You-
reach.
Mm-hmm.
I can move there. Is that
No,
possible?
No. You're good.
Okay.
I'm just curious about the nerd level in this chat.
Well, I figured mine and yours is because yours is connected to your keyboard, right, Brain? Or your computer, sorry. It's used as a MIDI board, yeah. Actually, I have two because I have my main one and then my little tiny MIDI one right here as well.
That
Yeah, that's my portable one for my laptop stuff. It's so small and so cute.
nice.
It's cute.
So I realized that we didn't talk about what I've been listening to, but I don't really listen to a whole lot of music. I should. Really, I've listened to the Dear Evan Hansen soundtrack like a million times, and I think everyone should go watch that musical because it's tight. But what I've been working on is I'm actually kind of all over the place right now, and this will transition into our topics, and I'll start one of my topics. But so something else is a piece that I've talked about on this podcast multiple times. It's a piece that I wrote that's like kind of jazz rock, and I had musicians from different places send me tracks, and I have to put them together and edit them and stuff. So Brain sent me a guitar track. I'm doing the bass track, which is not yet recorded. Currently, I'm using digital because I'm waiting for the drums. And then like Okang sent me Zilla, if you will, sent me sax, and then someone else sent me violin, and I'm doing that whole editing process. And that's an interesting beast of its own because everyone recorded differently, right? And everyone has different timbres and all kinds of stuff. Brain, you sent me clean and distorted guitar, which is super helpful. And then like Okang sent me like 4 or 5 different takes of every section, right? And so
Wow.
so a lot of my, like music stuff right now is trying to make that sound good. And some of the parts sound really, really good, and some of them I'm like, we're not quite together. There's gonna have to be some editing on that. So I'm working on that, and then I just finished a recording yesterday of Haywire House, which is a brass quintet that I wrote over the summer, and the quintet recorded it yesterday, and that piece is so hard. It is such a difficult piece, and there's this insane tuba solo at the end, and I wrote it only for this tubist because that dude freaking shreds on tuba. And he doesn't actually, tonguing? It's my understanding he doesn't actually double tongue or triple tongue. He just single tongues really, really, really fast. And so he's like shredding stuff that I couldn't even like play on bass, I don't think, right? And he's shredding it as a tubist, and so super cool stuff. But I'm also working. I have this percussion piece that's 3 movements, which was a challenge for me to write because there's this idea in composing of the different ways that you compose. I believe I've talked about this before. It's the Myers-Briggs system with Carl Jung, and like the middle 2 letters are a way that people potentially compose, right? So are you an intuitive and thinking composer, or are you a sensing and feeling composer, or whatever combinations of those, right? And so I challenged myself to write something based on feelings because I'm not a feeling person at all. And so I have this 3 movement percussion piece that I'm trying to work on that was to represent emotions. And I'm like, oh, this sucks because I'm not an emotional composer. But I'm also trying to write it.
Vibe with that.
Sorry, go ahead.
I said I vibe with that.
That's funny.
Because I'm very much a feeling person.
Right. And
it's part of my topic question. So.
Oh, excellent. We got a lot of we haven't even gotten to topics and we're an hour in. We're not going to get to all of them. But so with trying to write the emotions when I'm an intuitive and thinking composer is kind of difficult, and that's been frustrating. But I also wanted to go back and write in my old style of writing, which was like metal style of writing, where time is out the window, right? I play something and the time signature that it is just happens, right? And I adjust rhythms all over the place, just making cuts and snippets and here and there, because I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if instead of 8/8, the measure this time was actually 5/8, and it was just 3 notes short, but it was the same idea. And then you paste in the 8/8 rhythm, and you have the 5/8, and then you have the 7/8 version, and all kinds of stuff like that, right? And so embracing my old way of writing is really interesting. And then I'm writing it for percussion and electronics. And so I have to program the electronics in Max MSP. And so that's like a whole effort too. So I'm doing a lot.
Good.
But aside from that, the thing that I've actually been working on, which will move into my topic since Eric talked about business and stuff as well, is promotional stuff.
Uh-oh.
I've been building a website for like a month. And oh boy, is this like a thing. Like, we as musicians should have websites, and it's kind of like a lot of work. But so I had like professional headshots taken and stuff by a friend of mine, and I'm doing all kinds of like score setup and everything on the website and trying to set up. I'm using
Tinder
Weebly.
profile.
I'm married, trying to set up my website on Weebly and stuff. And that's a whole ordeal. But all this promotional stuff is completely necessary from what I'm told. And based on what I've seen of other musicians, someone's echoing. Based on what I've seen of other musicians, it is necessary, because I've looked up other composers and stuff before on their websites. I can't find their music. I can't find their scores. There's no recordings. And I'm like, how on earth am I actually supposed to know who you are and what type of music you write if your music's not available and you tell me nothing about your music, right? Because somehow I found your name, but your name is not enough, because there's too many musicians out there and there's too many variables. And so I'm working on this website to advertise myself, because I've actually had people ask me, hey, what's your website? Do you have a website where I can check out your stuff? And I'm like, yikes. So my main question is really specifically towards you, Brain, because I think you're the most active musician, maybe. Actually, no, Eric, you too, because you're active in like gigging and teaching and stuff. What is y'all's promotional process? How do you feel about it? How much time do you spend on promoting? And how are you getting gigs, and how are you going about this whole thing?
Are we going first?
You can go first if you want.
Okay. I think this social media is like it's funny because I took a music business class this last semester with Misma. Oh shoot. Okay.
With Ismail.
Okay, whatever.
With Zizma? Oh, Zizma, yeah.
And he brought on people who were gigging, audio engineer. So he brought one guy he gigs a lot, and then there's another guy who's an audio engineer. So like basically the promotional side is like nowadays, of course, like having social media and posting frequently, and in a sense kind of bombarding maybe, or just staying active with staying fresh in people's minds, your followers' minds. And I think the kind of tying into what you said about like how there are like composers, I think especially composers who I know their name, and like there's not a place where you can just really get to know them and their music and what they're about. I think I'm just kind of throwing this out there, but I feel like there's some sense of like, kind of like, oh, you come to me, like, and then then you can like find out my music, whatever, or buy from me first, and then you can hear my music, as opposed to like being like, hey, you come to your people, you come to your potential like fans, you come to them and be like, hey, this is what I'm about. By having a website, putting in time and effort to have a website and having like a very active social media account where you can get their updates and, hey, I'm working on this stuff, or hey, I'm playing at this place, come check it out, and here I'm selling tickets, message me for info. I think that's all I have right now. So yeah.
So what do you do? Do you do anything currently? What are you trying?
I think there's a lot of work that gets put into like websites, and I haven't even actually attempted to do it. But I know people who are, and I think that's very smart. And I think currently the only thing I do is just post on social media, which is something, but it's not, I don't think, enough to be considered real like official. If once I make a website.
Did we lose him?
I think somebody called you.
Sorry. Yeah, somebody called me again.
We lost you.
Sorry. Once I build a website, it'll be like, that's going to be more official. And I think my perception of myself and the people's perception, my followers' perception of me will be like, hey, this guy is actually serious about this, So.
So on the social media thing, social media is like awesome and terrible at the same time, and I think we can all agree with that. It's got so many flaws and so many problems, and it's hard to appreciate social media, but it's also like necessary, I think, for us as musicians. And so I did a little snooping while you were talking, because I was like, well, what does Eric post on social media? And you had like 2 videos this last month, right, on Instagram. And then the last post before that were like July. And I'm like...
Yeah. So I saw that, I was like, oof.
Same thing. I look at my Instagram, like the top like 9 posts that I just had or something, and they're like from the past whole year. Because I'm like, wow, I do not post enough. Other people are posting every single day, And maybe I've been told, at least, that it's the consistency of putting out product, even if the product is garbage, right? Just constantly being present is the way to go about this. And it's so difficult to want to post on social media and to want to advertise yourself all day long, because it feels like, oh, look at me, I'm egotistical and stuff, and look at these cool things I'm doing. And it's like, but it's part of the business, right?
I feel that.
Here's an interesting thought. Go on. What, Eric?
Oh, sorry. I think I'm like very echoey, but I think it's true. I think I see people, I'm like, oh man, like I don't want to be like them. Like it seems like an egotistical type of thing, and so naturally, emotionally, I'm like, I'm not going to be like them. I kind of want to lay low, but that's not the way to go if you want to be successful. So you do have to kind of suck it up, I guess, and be like, whatever. Like, I don't want to be that way, but this is kind of the only way to kind of stay fresh in people's minds and to be a little bit more successful, which that's the part I think I don't like as much. Like, I just want to focus on the music, and I wish I had maybe people to like help me with promotional stuff, give me advice on like, hey, you should probably do this. Or, hey, you should probably post something new because you haven't posted something new in a while. Stuff that's really like pertains to being successful. And meanwhile, I can focus on like just emotional music stuff that I want to do. So.
Yeah, I mean, I know, Brain, you had something. You can go ahead. I won't. Never mind. I won't.
To throw this out there, Jacob, you have put out more content than Bach. The totality in the number of hours of video and text, and if you count all the content you've ever put out, it's way more than him. And that just came to me. It's like, man, yeah, I've put out a lot. And I heard a statistic, right, that every day humankind puts out more content than had ever existed.
Huh.
Yeah.
The day before, to the beginning of time. And tomorrow, the same thing. We will put out more content tomorrow than, if you count from now backwards forever, we had ever made.
That
And
doesn't
it's just
seem legit.
ramping up. Well,
Now-
people use stuff way more. With every day, almost, the individual is getting more active, and there's more people being born. And now you got 12-year-olds with cell phones and insties, you know? And maybe it's not true, but it's still interesting to think about.
No, a ridiculous amount of content every day for sure. And I mean, I'm not even on all the social media, right? I don't do Twitter, and I'm not on TikTok. That's one that the kids are using, right? I don't do that. I don't do Snapchat anymore. I did Snapchat for like a year, and I never actually liked it that much. I'm like just Facebook and Instagram. I guess I got to do Snapchat and Twitter, but it just the amount of content that we see, right? Which, side note, I don't know if you noticed this. Someone pointed out to me the other day that they said, you know, it's like every 3 posts that you see an advertisement on Instagram, and I was like, yeah. And then I was like, wait. Every 3 posts? Is that right? You can go to Instagram right now. Every 3 posts, there's an advertisement between them. A quarter of the content you're seeing is being advertised to.
Boom!
That's insane. It never even occurred to me. And I scroll so quickly through Instagram anyway, right? I never like sit and actually watch a bunch of stuff. It's very few things that grab my attention. But dang it, Eric said something. I don't remember what it was now because Brain interrupted with the Bach thing. Oh well, Bach was unknown anyway. If you guys don't know that, Bach was completely unknown. He was only known in was it Vienna where he was right at the time, and he was like a church composer at the time. And then after he died, he was basically forgotten about, and his sons continued composing and stuff, but he was basically forgotten about because he was not important. It wasn't until the Romantic period when Mendelssohn brought back St. Matthew's Passion of Bach and was like, hey, this guy was really, really good. We should check it out. And now suddenly we're like, oh, Bach. But before that, everyone just studied the music of the person that they were studying with, and that's it. Basically, they only knew the music of the past like 20 years. No one went any further back, which is partially my whole argument about why I have a problem with us studying music that's hundreds of years old in the modern age. But anyway,
juicy.
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 But yeah, so the social media thing, it's like this necessary evil of, you know, constantly posting and being egotistical. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. And it's like people always have a problem from the social perspective of, oh, their social media is so fake from the person that they really are and stuff, right? But actually, I think as business people, because as artists, we have to be business people, we have to do that, actually. Our social media is our resume. We have to be as fake as possible, basically, to like, you know, not like lie on there, right? But to make ourselves look really, really, really good, right? And that's, you know, there's all the psychological issues today of social media and how people are actually more depressed, and we have a higher suicide rate and stuff because everyone's comparing their lives to these fake lives that they see on social media, because everyone's social media life is built up to make others feel bad and make them look great. And social media has all kinds of problems, and I could rant on this for a while.
Yeah.
But
my niece was talking about how she wants to die because she doesn't have as good toys as the people she's on YouTube.
How old is she?
4. She just turned 4.
Dang.
I don't know if that's serious or not, but that's really sad.
Right? Poor soul.
Man.
Yeah.
You said something that meant a lot to me. You were talking about how you look at the last posts you put out and then the huge gap. It's a chasm of space between the last stuff you put out, and it always feels like a diet or getting in shape. It's like, yeah, I have my momentum. I'm going to start posting, and then
I
it falls
know.
off.
Yep.
And then 9 months later, you get the itch again, and
Mhm.
you start thinking, I'm going to get more active. And
Yeah.
Well,
I like that.
okay.
And then, what, Eric?
I was gonna say you no, you're good. Good. Finish it up.
And then Eric said something interesting about how you do need to stay fresh in people's minds, right? And it's like there's not enough time to produce good music and content unless it's like food pics. Like, look what I'm having for dinner tonight, right? And I just can't be bothered to interrupt my real life. Honey, no, don't take a bite. I'm going to snap a picture for the social media, so it's hard to put up good content, I think. I could put up food pics, and yeah, that's why I don't stay active on it. It just occupies way too much of my effort. Wait, what's up, Jacob?
So I don't think it's actually that hard to put up the content that other musicians and stuff are putting up, because if you're an active musician, which I think we all are, we're in situations enough to where we can post that type of stuff. I know the thing that prevents me from doing it is because I almost feel embarrassed or ashamed to be that guy who's videoing everything and taking photos of everything and everything we're doing, right? It's like,
You look
yeah,
like a child.
yeah,
you look like
exactly.
me.
I could take photos
Agree.
of the band I'm playing with this week or whatever, or this cool thing I learned and this and that, and I'm like, but do I really need to? And
Right.
there's an egotistical part to it that I don't like, but then there's also the
Yeah.
little bit of like some kind of cringiness of like SoundCloud rappers who are like, check out my fire tapes and stuff, and you're like, I don't want to be in the same pool of people as
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And so it's this really difficult thing. And you're right, it's extremely like a diet, and I see it in like every musician that there's a huge, here's something musical, here's a gap, here's something musical, here's a gap. And you're totally right. I've seen it on you, Brian. I've seen it on Josue. I've seen it on myself. I've now seen it on Eric. I've seen it in Jonathan and his practice schedule. It's like always like that, right? You're like, I'm really inspired right now, but
Wow.
I'm calling out everyone. But side note, and not where. Well, no, I'll go there with this. So I was recently listening to like a Q&A or an AMA or something with Sean Plott. If anyone knows who that is, he's actually he goes by the tag Day9, but he was a professional StarCraft player back in the day. And then he started being a YouTuber and stuff, and he's really famous now and blah, 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 blah. But he was talking about the process of the creative process of how he did videos and live streams every single day and this and that. And the biggest thing that I try to encourage people to do, because I understand this from him, and I'm guilty of it myself of not doing it, is that you actually just have to do it every single day, and you have to be consistent. And I posted a thing on social media the other day about this that said something like, don't be afraid of producing garbage, because when you do it every single day, some of it's going to be garbage. But the fact that you're consistently there is really more important than actually just, coming up and having a good thing here and there, because no one's going to see it. And that was actually initially my goal, and part of my frustration and problems with this podcast is I wanted to do this weekly, and then we just lost momentum completely, and it's been a long time and stuff, and I'm like, we have to do this podcast every week, right? That's the consistent thing, right? And it's difficult, and some days you're not going to want to feel, you're not going to feel like doing any of it, right? You're not going to feel like writing music. You're not going to feel like talking about music. You're not going to feel like practicing. You don't want to do any of that crap. You have nothing to do with it. But you do it anyway. And if what you produced was garbage, you have to be okay with that still, right? And you just go and you do it again, right? And you just keep doing it. And it's not a motivation thing, because motivation is like fickle, right? You can't rely on motivation. You actually just have to keep going, right? It has to be this consistent thing day in and day out. And That's
Nice.
also part of the reason I'm doing this new game show thing, which some of you know about, some of you don't, which hasn't been announced yet, but y'all figured that out. And so you have to be consistent day in and day out, and I think we have to do this with social media too. Even if it's a crap post of like, oh, what can I do today, and be like, let me take this cool angled photo of my upright bass so people think I practiced upright bass today, and I totally did not, because that thing's been sitting in that corner since I bought it, even though I want to play it, right? You know, but and once you get to a point, you can stop doing it, right? I think of like Ed Sheeran. Ed Sheeran like released, like after his Multiply album, he said, "Bye guys, I'm getting off social media." And had no social media at all for like 2 years or something, and didn't advertise anything, and was nowhere. He was just doing his own thing, not playing shows, nothing. And then like all of a sudden he was like, hey, here's Divide album. And then it went crazy, and he went and toured and played all over the place. And just like another month ago or something, he was like, hey guys, I'm leaving again. And that's it, you know? And just went and did his own thing, and that's it. Okay, Brain, go. I've been talking for a long time.
You know, no, Ed Sheeran.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, you know, I like that idea about the consistency, because I went to my own profile not long ago and I realized that in like 1 minute, I can see a month of someone's Instagram.
Yeah.
Like, and if you're hitting it consistently, then when people go back, they're not just watching one thing. They'll watch the 7 or 8, 10-second videos, or they'll see, you know, a month of content really quickly. And so, yeah, I guess having consistency is going to be something. But unless you can put out like all those in one day, which I can't,
You
just have
shouldn't.
to slowly chip away at the thing.
There's actually science on this, by the way, and Sarah has been really into this, looking at the science of what times of day and when you should post and stuff. And there's certain specific times of day and what days you should and should not post, because people are using their social media the most at certain times of day. And it's like you could figure this all out and science it all out. And I believe there are people who do that, who do science it all out. And they probably even have an automated system where they're like, don't upload this. They have a program that's like, don't upload this until 6 p.m. on Friday or something, or whatever it is, you know?
Work or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, sorry.
No, I'm saying.
Okay. So like going into that, you're saying like you feel like superficial and you feel like this egotistical type of thing, and I feel like it's really easy for me to be that way. Like if you look at prior to those videos of like July, I was like posting very often, and increasingly became less often and less often, because I hate feeling superficial. I hate feeling vain.
Mm-hmm.
And that feels great to not feel like that, to not post. But I'm actually doing, in a way, harm to my, like, I guess, my career or look as an artist. And it sucks to have to like to go into that, and like knowing that you have to do that. It's like, gosh, I don't want to feel vain. I don't want to feel like I'm feeling superficial, but it's quite necessary, unfortunately. So I just got to take the good with the bad. It really sucks. Just realizing that.
Has anyone ever gotten a job off of Twitter in this chat?
I don't use Twitter.
Or Tumblr or Insta, Facebook, maybe? You know, there's some connections that maybe you could attribute to Facebook.
I have a friend, but no, I haven't.
But yeah, all my jobs have been grassroots connections where a guy I know really well can't make it, and they're like, well, who do you know that could do this? And
That's true.
They call me, and then they just keep calling me.
Mm-hmm.
And it sucks, but you get sick in this business and you're out. And yeah, let's go on.
I was just gonna say I sort of have. It's someone I semi knew. So this guy who went to Sarah, my wife's church, who I had only met like once or twice, but he like knew of me and he knew Sarah pretty well. I posted on Facebook when I moved to Arlington, I was looking for a church to play bass at. And while we were friends on Facebook, we didn't really know each other and stuff. He straight up like messaged me like minutes afterwards and was like, "Hey, I have this new church that's a sister church of my church that needs a bass player, and it's a paying gig every week." And I'm like, okay, tight. So Facebook did help me actually, but I specifically went out and requested it, right? Someone didn't just come to me. So a little different, but at least social media did something. I was able to like post a bulletin essentially out there being like, "Hey, I'm available and looking for a position," you know, which actually is pretty helpful.
Your network was big enough that when you threw out a hook, you got a bite, right? And, you know, if Ed Sheeran or someone was like, in my hometown, like, who's got a recommendation on where to eat? Everyone would see that. Millions of people would see that. And I guarantee someone's close by, right? And, yeah, that's interesting, too. It's like if you have a big network, a little content goes a long way. If you have a small network, it seems like the opposite might be the case, that you need to be putting things out.
So,
but I don't
know. Kick and Rooster in the chat, who we all actually know, said that he got one from Snapchat. Someone on Snapchat posted that they needed a trumpet player, and he just messaged the dude and got that gig. So again, that's a little different, right? It's a bulletin being posted thing, but it is the network, right? It's not just someone sees your profile and they're like, "Hey, I need a trumpet player," right? But still, that kind of bulletin thing is super useful. I know Doc Loke posts that kind of stuff all the time. Like, "Hey, I need a sax for tonight," or whatever. And seems to work. So big networks, super useful in that way. And that's not being artificial at all. That's just having a network. And that's actually kind of the grassroots connection that you're talking about. It's just that Facebook is the new telephone number, right? So is that
well put.
Thanks. Brain, is that the only way that you make your connections and promo and stuff? Or is there anything else promotional you're trying to do other than just make connections in person in NAC, which is a small community?
Yeah, so unfortunately my students I would teach would be like high school and college, and ironically going out and playing at bars, even if you're playing great and playing with your teeth and behind your head, right? They aren't going to be there. They're not going to see that. So funny enough, I actually have a suspicion that if I get some ripping guitar stuff on my social media and it gets into the hands of the youngsters, then I'll have customers, there. And I've thought about that maybe. But churches don't really hit me up on social media. It's a grassroots thing, and most of the gig opportunities might be a Facebook message from someone that I know through a grassroots connection. And like you said, it's just the new telephone, right?
Yeah, and that, I mean, with churches, that's how I see it has been. Actually, everyone is kind of like connected on Planning Center these days. The modern churches are, right? And it's just like, if you have their name, I think, or their email or something, you request them on Planning Center, right? And it's just, yes, I will do this gig. It's just a no questions asked kind of thing, right?
Can you imagine if they took to Instagram to just find the hottest, sharpest, shiny new penny?
Hear me?
Yes.
Tight. Okay. My interface decided it wanted to crash on me for a second. So that's fun. Yay, technology, right? That's you, Native Instruments, Complete Audio 6. Native Instruments, looking at you. All right. We should get to Eric's topic since he's the guest, and we got like 30 minutes left.
All right.
Okay.
I'm gonna take a bathroom break just so we know. After I
Okay.
hear.
Wow. Okay.
How many?
I was gonna say, do you believe that suffering is required for great art and creativity?
Wow.
That. Uh-huh. So, like, I know that might not pertain as much to you, Jacob, because you said you're less of a feeling person. You can go to the restroom, Brian, if you can sit on in the restroom if you wanna.
Bring the computer.
But yeah, bring your computer to the. Wow. Okay, so yeah, because like in my personal experience, I felt like whenever I'm going through something really like an anxious time or like a really hurtful time, I find that it's easier for me to just write lyrics or write a melody where it's like I want to get this out, you know, as opposed to just trying to crank it out. It's like what is there to get out? There's like nothing that I'm really going through, you know. I was looking through like a post by this music account on Instagram, and it was like a quote from the singer of Led Zeppelin. I forgot his name, but
Robert Plant?
Robert Plant. It says, I really believe that the artist can't just turn it on if the well is dry. You can only turn it on when the soul is so full that it's just going to pour out. And that's kind of cool for me, but also not cool for like any musician because again, it goes into motivation. Whether or not you get motivation from feeling sad or feeling an overwhelming amount of emotion. So like, yeah, I don't try to rely on it at all. In fact, I try to not rely on motivation and just kind of cranking it out. I don't have any deadlines. Like I'm doing it just for myself, but I've seen there's times where I've been like just on the like trying to create a melody somehow for like a whole hour. And like, there's nothing that I want. There's nothing that I'm getting out. So I just kind of close it. And I remind myself that I usually make better stuff anyways when I'm going through something, maybe a difficult couple of hours or something happened that really got me down. So I just wanted to know what you thought of that.
Have you ever thought about like generating your suffering then, so that way you can compensate for this time?
Whipping yourself while you write.
What?
I think people think that's a real thing.
What?
Putting yourself in situations where you will be emotionally distraught and hurt so that you write better music.
I think that's actually could be very true. At least for a musician that I am.
I knew this girl. She was actually really successful, and she ended up dying. But she was Amy Winehouse. So like I think she did it to herself.
All right, so I got so much on this if we want to go into it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think me and you have had this conversation actually multiple times now. But I'm glad we're talking about it on the podcast a little bit. Because it's the concept of you saying, well, I've been writing for an hour and I don't come up with anything, right? And well, I write better when I'm feeling inspired and stuff. And that's a topic I can talk about all over the place because as someone who's my major is composition, you don't get dead time, right? You're not allowed to be like, oh, well, I just wasn't inspired this week or whatever, right? That's not practical and that's not allowed. And so we've talked about this and with Rosseg one time in a practice room at a school. And so the idea is that I think really that ends up being what you have to decide what's best for you. You're right. You don't have any deadlines and you do music for yourself. If you're really trying to be successful and make money off of it, I think you have to a little bit go my way of you have to just constantly be producing material. But something I will say is that an hour is not much time. And in general, it can really feel like a lot. to sit there and be trying to produce, and you just keep producing crap and crap and crap, right? And it's okay, again, be comfortable to produce garbage, because generally if you take a garbage idea and you start expanding upon it, you can find, like if you have a chord progression that you're like semi-happy with or not happy with at all, but it's the only thing you're coming up with, you can expand upon it and then actually fix it later once you get the good idea on top of it, because at least it gets you writing. But so a general rule that I took from my composition professor is that he said he tries to compose for at least 3 hours every day, because it is only after about 3 hours or so that you really start getting the good stuff going. And I've kind of found that to be true. And man, is it frustrating. But, so like for people who don't know, in the music school system, a composer takes a weekly private lesson the same way that they do for their instrument. So that means that every single week I have to have new material for my composition professor to judge. So typically, it could be as little as 20 to 30 measures, but generally you want a lot more than that, right? And so if I'm sitting there like writing, and it's all garbage for hours, it honestly sometimes takes me 3-4 hours before I even get a motive that I'm happy with to expand upon, right? And that's at this piano or on my bass, on Finale, in Pro Tools, whatever. It takes so much time to just come up with something, right? And a lot of my best stuff has come up after 4 or 5 hours of processing it, right? And it's not an emotional thing at all. And you said to me, like, this might not apply to me because I'm not an extremely emotional person. And I will argue that. I don't believe that anybody got into music without being an emotional person, because music is emotional in essence. And so while I compose from a theoretical standpoint a lot of the time, and an intuitive standpoint a lot of the time, it does not make me any less emotional. It's just because I have a very mathematical and logical brain, and so that's how I operate in the theoretical sense, right? But I wouldn't have gotten into music if it weren't for music that ripped my heartstrings out and made me realize that this is what I needed to do and this is where I feel my calling is, right? The difference is that my goal is to write music that's just as emotionally gripping and is saying what I want to say without the suffering part involved, because I don't have time to cause myself suffering or cause myself love or cause myself any type of emotion that I need to express, right? I don't have the time to do that because I actually have to produce product, right? I have to produce two pieces a semester, essentially, right? And so in real life, if I got commissioned, might have to create a piece in a month or something, right? Man, I could go on this more. But final statement on it is do you think that suffering is necessary for good music? I'll say no, because we attribute so much to everything that Bach did, and Bach was not suffering. He was literally in a church system, which a lot of the old composers were in a church system where they just had to produce a massive work, a massive brand new work every single week. And I would say that their music is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
There's my statement.
Yeah,
Go do whatever you want.
I think it's a very fundamental question to ask that, because I heard that even from like my first theory teacher, and like they're basically, those people were like, no, they didn't sit down and wait for motivation. They had to put food on the table, right? So they had to write something, anything. And when I first started creating, I was like, oh yeah, it's all emotion. And, I think because I don't have that timeline, I kind of give myself a lot of leeway, and I kind of, after about an hour working on trying to work on a good verse or trying to find the right words to say to fit in the rhythm that I want it to be in for a verse, after an hour, I'm just like, I'm so frustrated. And that's probably why that I don't continue and push myself through that frustration and the impatience, is because I feel like Well, first of all, it's because like I feel like there's something there, like something that just wanting to get out, but it's not coming out. It's like, what the heck? Okay, maybe I should stop trying to crank this out and wait for something, like, because I know people who are like that too and write great music, but yeah, I think everybody's just really, really different when it comes. And I'm not when it comes to writing music, but I'm not saying that it's the only way to write great music. I think a lot of people can sit down and maybe find something great within the first few seconds. Sometimes it takes a lot of time, more than a few hours, to really refine what you're trying to say. But yeah, that's just my experience.
I got something to say about this. We're good, yeah?
I was pointing at you, yeah, because I was waiting for you to say. Yeah.
All right, yeah. All right, no, you don't need suffering, right, to make music. Now, you said great music. That's the qualifier there, right?
Right.
When Jacob was talking about sitting at this is just a little tangent. He was talking about sitting at the piano and working on stuff for a long time. And I know what it's like to hit the wall, literally and figuratively when you're composing. I know it. And then I think of guys like John Cage who write 433.
Oh,
like that. And I'm like, oh boy, I thought music was this, but it's this whole thing. And I'm like so zoomed in on it, right? It's like I can see the letter R, but if I back away, there's a whole paragraph and a whole page of text, and yeah, I've been thinking about music a little bit in that way too. Like, could I just address it from a Steve Reich, John Cage way, where it's almost written by rules, right? Like pendulum music. It's just an idea, side tangent, that made me think of John Cage. It's like, he had it simple, man. He clearly wasn't slaving away to make 433, But
well, that's goes into it could be like a side topic that I also wanted to talk about. But you don't have to talk about it, but I'm just going to mention it. It's 433. Of course, it's music, but not music, but it's art. But is that I was having a conversation with people about that, and basically we were saying yes, art can be anything you want it to be. Experimental music it's still music, obviously, but should John Cage be renowned for 433, even though it's just silence? Yes, great philosophically, but does that mean he should be really, really famous for it? You know what I mean?
I like that. That's a provocative topic to talk with people about, because some people think it's not even music, right? And other people think it absolutely is. It's the most minimalist piece you can think of, probably. And yeah, a lot of people just like John Cage for his approach, right? The idea of using shapes and having chance music and allowing the performer to be an interpretive part and a variable in the performance, that's very unique to me. And it doesn't take suffering to make that.
Yeah.
Right? And I really don't think, of course, it takes suffering to make great music, right? But a little bit of suffering, a little bit of existential dread, and knowing that you're trying your best to leave something behind, right? That says, I was here, that can fuel the fire a bit. And a little suffering can definitely wake up a part of you that maybe before you were too reserved to let out of the cage, but no, it's not crucial. What's up, Jacob?
So, well, first on the John Cage thing, should he be famous or popular for that, or renowned for that, or whatever? That's a whole other topic of what should. Look at this lens flare over here from this
girl,
from this sun coming in through the window. But that's a whole other topic of why should people be renowned for anything, right? Should people be famous for shaking their butt and for people having sex videos and stuff? But I'm glad that you mentioned mentioned the thing about this existential idea of I need to leave something behind that represents me and stuff, because that actually reminded me of a response I had to Eric's question that the suffering musician idea actually hasn't been around that long, and the artist and the very emotional and the suffering and the value of the artist as an artist, and this concept of them as creative individuals separate from any logic or reason or normal society or whatever, however you want to frame it. I like to think of it as just like put it in the box of hippies. I'm covering up this lens flare. Do you see this?
Put a piece of paper on it.
It's not actually hippies, but you know what I mean. And Eric, you very much so fit in this box. I think Josue fits in this box a little bit of very much so emotional musicians and stuff. That didn't exist until like 200 years ago. And people don't realize that. That's actually a Romantic era thing. Musicians were not seen as that type of person before. It wasn't until the Romantic era when the starving artist became this like, well, romanticized and beautiful idea, right? And this person suffering for their music and music. This is gonna drive me crazy right now. That whole idea of the artist as we know it, and artists being famous and artists making money and stuff, the entire concept of our artist industry right now did not exist until 200 years ago. And it wasn't till the Romantic period when these artists, such as Liszt and Chopin and everyone, became famous. And it was after Beethoven's Ninth that it happened, right? Because Beethoven, essentially, is my understanding, like Beethoven's Ninth was this big piece and made the musician valuable and stuff. And a little bit in the classical period, there was some of this musicians trying to make it on their own, only based on commission and not within the church. But all before that, musicians were just church musicians, essentially. And, or, you know, the little, what were they called? The minstrels or something on the streets, playing their little lutes and stuff. But artists as we know it today are all corrupted, to say in a non-negative connotation, by that sense of the Romantic period. And in fact, everything that we do in music today feels like it came directly from the Romantic period and nothing before. It goes back to what I said before about how Mendelssohn brought back St. Matthew's Passion for Bach, and now suddenly we have these artists who are the same artists as the Romantic period, and we also have these artists who are looking hundreds of years back in the classical world to old classical music, and we're just stealing everything that the Romantic period did. The Romantic period made us where we are today. And that idea, even the existential idea of I need to be famous, I need to matter, I need to leave something behind, people need to know my name, didn't exist until the Romantic period. That's why nowadays it's just everywhere, right? Because it was very recent that it happened. The Romantic period was not that long ago. It's very recent that it happened, that this whole concept of everyone is important and everyone needs to matter and everyone needs to leave something behind, and I want a statue erected of me, and I need people to be playing my music and listening to my music forever and ever and ever and ever, and I don't want to die because I'm scared of death and I'm scared of no longer existing. That just didn't exist before. So, do you need suffering to create great music? Again, I say no, because that's still a brand new concept. That's only a concept that has been brought up in the past 220 years.
Yeah, you know, some people take drugs. We were talking about inspiration, right? You can't bet on that. Mm-hmm. Some people take drugs to do the opposite, to artificially create an elevated kind of state in their psyche, right? And other people cut themselves and go in a dark room and compose with the lights off to try to get that. And yeah, maybe people go at it from both directions, right?
I think it's just
no, go ahead.
Personal to everybody. Sorry. I think it's personal to everybody. But there is, in most cases, I guess going into more like the philosophical side, like we're all humans when we all feel, and music is an expression of emotion and soul and whatnot. But there is very particular things that people have to do to get in that zone of creating music, and then on top of that, creating good music, which is very particular to certain people, depending on so many different psychological factors. So
Completely. And I mean, music is completely subjective, and I'm the type of person I can argue things all day long because I know history stuff and I know theory stuff, but I will never be able to argue that music is not subjective and that you can't like something for some reason, because you can like whatever you want, and music is subjective at the end of the day.
It's sound waves at the end of the day. And you're the thing that makes it emotion. You're the prism that it splits in, and it has all this color and all bad, or hope I'm not muted. Yeah, and I have to remind myself, this is sound waves. Like, when people get too worked up about this, I'm like, let's cool it here, I see young kids just goof around on the piano because it's fun. It's not always this passionate, romanticized kind of journey, and it's not the meaning of my life, right? And that might shock some people to hear, but if I lost my hands, I would still be here, and
Completely.
what makes my life meaningful is you guys, not to get all mushy on you.
I think you really see that as a teacher. I think we were talking about that too, Brian. It's like how, like, if they're not paying attention, you kind of want to treat them like as adults. Like, why aren't they taking it seriously? But it's kind of like they're just kids. They're just like, don't even know. They're not even that serious about anything.
True.
So, much less music. So.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And maybe they don't have the soul-crushing burden of adult life on them to make music meaningful. I liked music as a youngster,
Yeah.
I felt more emotionally connected to music as a youngster. Nowadays, I don't feel as emotionally connected.
Maybe we're desensitized, and over time it takes more and more of a powerful drug or chord to, like, wake us up, right?
Yeah, that's true. It takes something special. Yep.
Because I listen to things I used to like and think were like God level, and I'm like, oh, that's adorable.
Yeah, straight up. Yeah.
There's like 3 chords there. Good for you,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a 4th one in the bridge? Ooh. All right.
So on the kids thing, I'll have one final thought on the kids thing, then I think we're basically done. Carl Orff, do you guys know who that is?
Yes. The inventor of the Orff Schule.
He did Carmina Burana, which everyone knows, or O Fortuna. Yeah. He just has a quote, and it just is, let the kids be their own composers. And I think that's basically what it all comes down to at the end. They can pluck stuff out on the piano, let them be themselves. We don't need to corrupt them with our predisposed ideas of a dominant chord resolves to a 1 or a 6. Jonathan, you are so getting muted right now. What is happening?
Philip Heath, who is a great classical guitar player and visited San Jacinto College, and he did some masterclass stuff. He said that he often lets classical students spend 2 years on the instrument with music, but no technique, no, this is wrong, none of that. It is nothing but exploration and positivity. And then 2 years in, once you're used to the instrument, now we can refine everything you're doing. But let them just kind of have at it.
Do you follow that approach when teaching?
No. No. I don't have that kind of patience, and frankly, my students' parents wouldn't be happy if I just let it be playtime. They want to hear something coming off that instrument, to know that I'm worth what they're paying,
I would say I get I get that opportunity a little bit. Not that I'm teaching composition yet, but eventually when I am, I won't be teaching. I don't know if I'll ever teach bass or voice or anything, but the opportunity in that I believe a composer's goal as a teacher and a composition teacher is to let the student's voice come out as clear as possible. It is what we are trained in doing, is to think about music not critically in that, are you resolving seventh chords properly, or is this interesting because it changes and has different meters, is this modern, is this hip, or anything like that. But it is the questions that you can ask to the student to better their own voice, even that if that means that they want their musicians to play their violins all upside down. It's like, well, how do we go about this, you know? Which I think is super cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that it? We just hit the 2 hour mark. 2 hours, 6 seconds, 7 seconds, 8,
Well done.
9. I think that's basically it. Eric, thanks for coming on the show. Do you want to plug yourself real quick? Any social media or anything you want people to check out, know about?
Oof. Y'all can follow me on Instagram, wildhoney67_. That is all I have, but I will have more. Thank y'all. Thank y'all for having me.
Yeah.
Anything else? Anyone else got any plugs or anything?
Yeah, follow me on everything.
Brian
Follow
Wandra.
Brian
Great.
Wandra on everything.
You can follow me on Instagram, JL Clodfelter. I think you can also search that into YouTube and find me. Eventually, pretty soon, my website will be jlclodfelter.com. That should be in a week or two. So go check that out, and we'll play this little outro music here if anyone's still in this room. Nice little hexatonic scale stuff. It's absolutely gorgeous. And thanks for
Is this
watching.
from Overwatch?
Yeah, it is.
It's pretty.
Sure is. Later, y'all.